You find a way. This is a case of hypochromic cervical lesion. It's an indeterminate leprosy in a patient with hepatitis C. This was the first case we studied. And we need to define a region of interest. It's necessary to measure the temperature of that area. So we measure temperature minus the ambient temperature divided by the tympanic temperature, because it's the inner temperature, minus the ambient temperature again. So you have a value between 0 and 1 for that region. And this value we can compare with anyone, independent of the room temperature and the inner temperature. So it's an engineered solution. It was very funny because I tell you the story. This is my profession, and he's engineering, profession for engineer, because I have a doctor. I also doctor in engineering, mechanical engineering, and he came to me and said, I have a problem in my neck made by Hansen, and I would like that you make a thermography. Then I make thermography, and he said, I will start a treatment, and I would like that you make different images along my treatment. And I start to do this, and he asked me, why? But today is different, your temperature run here. Today I run. He put a lot of problems to me, like I said, and he established, no, why don't you use normalized temperature? What's this? Oh, it's a pole housing solution. So we started this work with our advisor experience. And this is the first image, show the problem. So we measured temperature, and during 600 days of treatment, we measured the dimensional temperature of that region. And here's the pictures on the 0th day and the 8th day. During the 8th day, it established the dimensional temperature. But if you see the visual image, there's no difference until the 400 days. Until for the 300 days, there's no difference on the image, visual image. But by infrared image, dimensional, it was possible to see that he had a response of the treatment on the 80 day.
What treatment did you roll out?
The treatment, I show you, there's a lot of, because he had hepatitis C is also and Hanseníase. I'll show you after. There's a lot of medications. So the objectives of my work that I presented on my doctoral. Is it possible to use a dimensional temperature for medical thermography? So, which are the cut-off values of normalized absolute temperature and a dimensional delta T? We also did delta T from opposite sides for normal parts of human body and most common diseases studied by infrared thermography. So we did a 4-year study with 104 health volunteers, 61 women between 17 and 72 years, 900 patients, 35 breast tumors, 56 benign breast diseases, as mammary dysplasia, cyst, mastitis, 99 clean arteries, 27 sacroiliids, 300 myofascial pain syndrome, 236 fibromyalgia patients, 77 insomnia patients, 35 with fever, and 4 with limb amputation risk. So I will show you the normalized temperature of this disease. So it was obligatory for all patients to do tympanic temperature before the exam. Today it's a routine for us. So here's the example of thermography doing the image of the body in a tripod. It's very simple. Tripod the camera, control at temperature room, measure the tympanic temperature. Okay. We use the same pictures classification of Uematsu. So we studied the region of interest by computerized selection. This region of interest are special because they represent the main regions of dermatomas for S1, L5, etc. So, and also for breast, we studied the total breast and areolar temperature. So pay attention now because we studied a dimensional temperature for which regions that we call theta, we say theta. Alarm isotherm, that is a theta cut off 2 standard deviation above, I'll show you, and delta theta, that's a delta temperature gradient. Isotherm function is a color alarm, so you have a scale and you define a value, 0.8, for example, and you want to everything between becomes white in an isotherm. Isotherm is the same color in that range, so you can define a region of interest. So the results of the normal patients, we have a 0.8 dimensional temperature for the front head until almost 0 for the toys temperature. So you have a hot temperature in the center and more colder in the extremities. Just we found, so the dimensional normal temperature for all these regions here, and the delta theta, we measure difference between left and right side, and we found a 0.007, a very little difference between the sides, okay? But these are normalized temperature, 0. Okay, for this is the number for total breast, 0.6, and areolar 0.6 also. And this is this standard deviation. So the normal breast has a very symmetrical difference, where is very symmetrical and have a little difference, 0.0001 in delta T dimensional. Okay. For now the disease, breast cancer, we studied the value of normal is at 0.6, the benign is 0.8, and the breast cancer is much more, it reached 0.86. This is the mean and 2 standard deviation. These are the values of delta T. So you have a difference between breast cancer and normal breast. It's very different. This is a case of a woman, suspicion lesion on the left, right. So here, is it a tumor or not, or is it a power compression? So if we put on a dimensional scale, 0 between 1, and using isotherm, you can isolate the tumor with this method. Here again, a case of breast cancer with delta T much more than 0.89. You can isolate it here on the left breast. Again, the dimensional scale and the isothermal function. So this is the basics of automated diagnosis. If you have a normal value, you can find the problem. You see again, here is a benign right cyst, and when we use 0.89, it didn't appear the difference. Here a typical hyperplasia, also it's not possible to identify by isothermal. And but there are some pitfalls like breast infection post-operatory. Sure, you have a difference. Sure. but you must to correlate with the clinics of patient. And then this is another situation if high estrogen women that have a high temperature are symmetrical, but it's a much more higher temperature than all the body. There are women with high estrogen, and she has more than 0.89 temperature, but the delta T is very symmetrical. Okay, for our results, we have a good significance level for dimensional temperature, delta T, and isotherm, and a sensitivity of 96 and specificity of 98 for breast cancer using this method. For kidney arthritis, we also find a great difference between normal and arthritis, 0.8 and here 0.4. Also for delta T, here normal, here with the isotherma, and then find the right the kidney arthritis with a sensitivity of 98, specificity of 99%. All three have significance level. For sacroiliitis is very important to study by thermography, because sometimes nuclear medicine they have some difficulty to find, and we can by thermography to give much more information and study all full body. So when you study delta, the delta temperature, you have a little difference, not so much. But when you use delta T, you have a significant temperature. So here's the suspicion lesion, and using isotherm you can identify that it's really abnormal lesion. So in this case, we don't have doubts. We know that it's a sacroiliitis because we have a data. We have a bank of information to this. And we are improving these numbers, testing this with another population. So suspicion, and here is correct. High sensitivity, high specificity, also for the dimension temperature, delta, theta, and isotherm. For myofascial pain, comparing normal myofascial pain and fibromyalgia. This is very interesting because when you use 0.779 in isotherm, you can find high temperatures on the trigger points. So when you have trigger points, you have values above 0.79 and identify the trigger points. But you use this to confirm the disease, to make needling after this, to see the results before and after. But when you have fibromyalgia, it's very interesting because fibromyalgia, he doesn't have that hotspot. They have a mantle sign, mantle, like a coat, like a coat sign, and the image is very homogeneous, and it's very clear to see. When you put someone in front of the camera with fibromyalgia, it's very easy to see this mantle sign with cold hands and eyes congestion at shoulder. We did this with a study with 236 patients with American College of Hematology criteria, and we compare with 34 health subjects. And making the multiple regression, we made a score to identify if it was possible to separate normal and fibromyalgia patients. And it's possible to do this by a score. So it's very, very easy to identify the mantle sign in these patients. So the delta T is not so much difference between normal, mild, fibromyalgia. The most important is to the isotherm in this case, because the isotherm above 0.79, it gives you the cold sign. Here again, cold sign with a visual image with superposition of cold sign. In the back also, in front and the back. So it's much easier. So this is fibromyalgia, and this is trigger point with facial pain. Sure, so there are sometimes you have true disease, but you have this partner associated with trigger points. Okay. So we are talking about automated diagnosis here. We have a good significant level for isotherm, but not so much for delta T or a dimension of temperature. High sensitivity specific. Insomnia. Insomnia, it's very interesting because you can measure the temperature of periorbital eyes, peripalpebral. And people that have problems, sleep disturbance, have a congestions of the vessels in the eyes. We call, say, I don't know how to say in English this, like like edema, yes, but sometimes it's visual. Everybody, you didn't sleep because it's very. So, but thermography is so much sensitive for this, so you can see if I have a camera here. I say, oh, you don't sleep tonight. You don't sleep. It's very interesting. It's possible to do this, and but you can. Sorry, you must just do the. It's a screening method, and interesting for traffic, for transit, to apply in transit. And these fibromyalgia patients, most of them have this. It's very common. They have a sleep disturbance. So you see the cold sign, cold hands, and the panda eyes, like a panda eyes, yeah. And we studied the delta T. There's no difference, but you can see the panda eyes here, normal panda eyes with isotherm. Okay, normal case with a value 0.83. This is the partner, and for panda eyes and for panda eyes. Okay, but we have a value now. We are not saying a subjective. We are being very objective here, and with a high sensitivity, high specificity also. And fever. For fever, it's very interesting because fever, it's not only measure the temperature, like most of articles says. Now measure the temperature of the front head. No, you must measure the partner, because here we have a different partner for fever. It's a vasodilatation of all the face, different from the normal. Okay. Now I can say it has fever with a 0.69 delta dimension of temperature. If sensitivity 85, specificity 96. And limb ischemia, doing the opposite. Doing the opposite, for example, this is a case of a man, engineering, that hurts, maybe has this problem, almost lose his finger. This is the radiography showing the fracture. And he did it with his cell phone, the image. And this is the image. This image 1 month after this accident. And the orthopedist wants to make let's amputation. And he came to me and said, "Oh, please, let's see if it's necessary." And so we did the image, and it's very interesting to see the image that you have perfusion on the tip of the finger, on one side, on other side no, but this side has a perfusion. So you have studied the limit. When you have above 0.3, it's good. Below 0.3 is not good. Here it was below, but here is above 0.3, and the second finger. So he wait more 1 month. Here is 2 months. Here is 3 months. Yeah, the name was, but it was not possible to study this by ultrasound because it's very thin vessels, very difficult. And this application for thermography is very, very good, very specific. It's Guyton. There's nothing very new here, just measuring the temperature, just doing this. And here is isotherma, showing the 0.3 area, and we said we will help this man. Okay, It's another case of he had limb amputation. He has a